Aloha and welcome to another Wayne Coito show. I'm grateful to be joined by another esteemed guest. I've been so lucky to have so many great sports figures, coaches, players, athletes, just really inspiring figures come in through the Hawaii Sports Fans channel in the past, couple months that we've been doing this. And I'm so grateful to have Senator Glenn Wakai join us today as well. So, Senator Glenn Wakai, aloha and welcome.
Aloha. Thanks for having me, Wade. I mean, you have all of these illustrious guests because you're so awesome. You're so engaged, so knowledgeable. All right, none of us are going to waste time with a kind of half-wit guy, but I'm happy that you are so fully engaged in sports and look at it from so many different angles. So it's really an honor for me to be here with you today.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm grateful that you've in your busy schedule. I know your hands are in a lot of different places, but a lot of people, if they think of Glen Wakai, if they kind of grew up, I guess, in the '90s or 2000s, they might have saw you on TV first. So before we even saw the state senator Glen Wakai, talk about that persona. If that's the same guy we're thinking about, that Glen Wakai, I think you were on KHON or something back in the day.
Just a little better, a little bit more wrinkly, but I've been in politics now 18 years. Prior to that, back in the 90s, I was in the news business. My news career actually began in Guam and then went to Saipan. And then I worked, that was for 4 years. Then I worked another 7 years locally for KHON, Channel 2, and then KHNL, which is now Hawaii News Now. But back in 2002, I saw the writing on the wall with the coming of high definition TV.
Mm-hmm.
All the ugly guys had to go find a new job. So I ended up in politics. And perfect because you know what they say about politics, right? Politics is celebrity for ugly people. So perfect. I just kind of just matriculated and evolved into a place that I really, really enjoy. I love lawmaking and politics.
Well, a lot of your, as a politician, you're out there, you're engaging in the community, you are interacting with people, and it's something that's difficult because a politician you really got to put yourself out there, right? You really have to be willing to take a lot of criticism and also be willing to be vulnerable, as someone who uh, you have to be very vocal about what you believe in. And I know you're very tenacious, and you use that word to describe yourself. And what is it about politics that gets you going and being a leader that really gets Glenn Mackay active?
I love politics because if you're going to make significant changes in Hawaii or nationally or even internationally, you're going to do it from the position of government, right? I could be the CEO of a bank, an airline, a retail outlet, and I might be really good and profitable for my one entity, but I don't have a dramatic effect on entities outside of that one space. But in government, I have to be knowledgeable about everything. We're going to talk a lot about sports today, but if you and I were engaging in a discussion on healthcare, education,
Mm-hmm.
Native Hawaiian issues, transportation, public safety, we could have an engaging conversation there. And I like politics because you get a master's degree in everything. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you spoke a little bit earlier about my career in news.
Mm-hmm.
The analogy for a news reporter is you're a mile wide, but you're only an inch thick. And in politics, you've got to be 10 miles wide and 10 feet deep, right? I don't have a minute and 30 in my news days to go describe how we're going to revamp education.
Mm-hmm.
But in this capacity, I have to understand like where the teachers union is, how are we going to social distance for our kids. So that part of it, I really, really enjoy politics. So that's why for me, it was a natural evolution to go from the 1 mile wide, 10, I mean, an inch thick to 10 miles wide and 10 feet deep. I totally enjoy it.
Well, you're also just very passionate about it, and that's really what makes whatever position you do, whatever you're a politician or nurse, whatever job. If you do it with passion and you do it with excitement, you can be the best at it. And I know you are definitely somebody that's very intent on some of these initiatives, especially in the sports realm, that have been really important, and we've been talking about as sports fans for years. And we're going to start with the stadium right away. And you talk to people about the stadium, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I heard about the stadium. Oh yeah, I saw some renderings or I saw some drawings, but I don't know. The state. They're not going. They always make promises. So let's start there and talk about just why you believe and the project will be done fully and on time."
Well, I tell everybody this is not Rail 2.0. I mean, this baby is going to be on budget and on time. And so far, I've been true to my word. Uh, Keep in mind, to where at the point where we are, it took 10 years. We had to do like some really just kind of mundane stuff like work with the federal government. There was this
Mm-hmm.
thing called a deed restriction that we had to lift. We had to go find land in Maui to go exchange 98 acres with the federal government, fish and wildlife in particular, remove the deed restriction, then come up with some money to do an EIS, an environmental impact
Wow.
statement, then do a master plan. But last year was the pivotal year, and we got $350 million as seed money. Keep in mind, the stadium is not going to just be 350 million.
Of
That's just
course.
what the state's input is. We fully expect the private entity, whoever is going to be the contractor, to put in some private money. So this thing could be maybe an $800 million stadium. But I don't want people to think like, what, $850 million? That means the thing is $500 million over budget. No, 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 no. The 350 is just kind of bait to let a developer know that state's willing to put some skin in the game
Mm-hmm.
and show me what you got. So where we are now in the process is we just last month did an RFQ. That's a request for qualification. That's where we find who out there can build a stadium, who's had experience building the stadium, because we don't want to vet like 100 applications,
Of
right?
course.
Just because you make good Legos doesn't mean that you can build a stadium. And we don't
Mm-hmm.
want this to be your first stadium you ever built. So
No.
we are looking at who might be financially able to build a stadium. So we did that. We found six qualified entities that can be builders of our vast stadium and 100 acres around the stadium. What's going to happen is hopefully at the end of this month, we will issue the RFP, the request for proposal. We're going to whittle down those six down to three. So those three will then be kind of, you're the three finalists, and show me what you got. And
Okay.
come October, they're going to show us what they got, do a presentation. Five individuals will choose which out of the three lucky contestants gets to be number one. We're going to hopefully award that contract in November or certainly before the end of the year. And then we expect by February or so of next year, whoever that contractor is going to start moving dirt. That dirt will be moving, things will rise, and the new stadium will be built by the start of the 2023 football season. So that's the timeline that we are on. And so far, as I mentioned, we are on budget and on time, not Rail 2.0.
Well, that sounds exciting, and I think we saw a rendering recently. There were a series of renderings that have come through. So, and talk about, so Crawford, the architect, they're already the contractor. They've already kind of made these renderings for some people, because we're talking about the RFQ is going to be for the actual people who are going to build the stadium, right? Are going to
Yep.
execute the plan that Crawford has put forward.
Yeah,
So,
Crawford
yeah.
just kind of created the parameters, right?
Okay.
But you might have seen three renderings,
Yes.
but winner might have something completely out of the box, blow your mind, and might be different. But we just wanted to create some kind of guidelines, because otherwise we say like, okay, here's 100 acres, do what you like, right? And
Yeah.
we wanted to have a little bit more thought process before going down that route.
Well, you talked about that whole area. The whole 100 acres is going to be, going to get a facelift, really. But parking is going to be something that will probably change a little bit as well. We'll probably lose stalls, the current stalls that we have currently. But talk to all those tailgaters out there who are worried with the new stadium as well.
That is such a Hawaii question, right? You and I
Yep.
know. We would go to like a major sporting event on the mainland. We don't park anywhere near the stadium, and if you do, you're spending like $100, $50 for parking, right?
Yep, easily.
Nowhere in America do you park for $8 and walk 100 yards into the stadium.
Nowhere.
So we have that Hawaii mentality that we like plentiful parking, and it better be free. So, yeah, that's one of the things I have to get past, is to let people know that we are going to build something really astonishing. It's called a parking structure. Okay, so we can have multi-layers of parking. So the 3,000 that might be subjected to mixed-use development, we're going to put and stack onto a parking structure. So that'll kind of provide the parking that we need. And I'm thinking, what if we put, to your point about tailgate, because I know that's a tradition
Yes,
here in Hawaii.
absolutely.
People enjoy. But, when we look at Aloha Stadium right now, I mean, you and I park any kind of place, we bust open the back trunk and then bust out the hibachi, and there's no real kind of coordination as to where you tailgate. So how about if we build the parking structure on the top level, we make that the tailgating area. And we'll have gas pits. So maybe you're not going to bring your cooler and your or not. You're still going to bring your cooler, not bring your your grill and
Mm-hmm.
hibachi there, but we'll have stations on top of the parking structure for you to tailgate, and maybe we'll charge you, I don't know, like $20 for, and it's almost like a permit, right? You have this little section, and we'll have 100 spots or something
I
to
like that.
tailgate. That's kind of I'm thinking about, because you're right. The vast what 80 acres out of the 100 acres that is used now for parking, that is going to be covered with restaurants, retail, other things. So we're going to have to make the best use of maybe the top of a parking structure to be the new tailgate area for Hawaii's people. And also keep in mind, with regard to parking, we have a rail system that's
Mm-hmm.
going in there that will bring hopefully a lot of our
Mm-hmm.
customers and fans to the games. And I'm also a believer that, by the time the rail is done, there's a good chance we can have autonomous vehicles. So you and I don't even have to drive to the stadium.
I hope
We can
so.
take our autonomous vehicle, and then your car goes back to Mililani, my car just goes back to
Mm-hmm.
Salt Lake. When the game's power, we kind of work our forwards, and then it comes pick us up. So we have like to have a driveway or Port Cashore to like have people come in and out. But I think the idea of us having to replicate all the parking that we have today in the future stadium, that is going to be a thing of the past.
Yeah, you talk about also the mixed use. Will have some commercial spots. We'll have some, residential as well. I believe is in the plan as well.
Yep.
Correct. So that
Yes.
should provide some greener or green space or whatever space for further tailgating as well. I mean, you went to USC. It's not like people there are parking in big parking lots. The Coliseum does have some parking, but USC has a lot of parking structures as well. But people are tailgating on campus, right, in the quad, in between the humanities building and the biology lab. So is that something that we could see as well? Maybe people scattered around the entire stadium.
Yep. And so there's going to be lots of little nooks there with some level of green space, but also keep in mind we want to really monetize that area.
Mm-hmm.
So if we put in restaurants, we kind of want you to go and eat at the restaurant, right?
Ah.
Because that
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
would think makes
Yeah.
makes
Of
sense.
course.
So not the traditional. I mean, right now there's no restaurants there, right? So you better bring your hibachi and cooler to the game. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what if we went to just Buffalo Wild Wings, Chili's, Ruby Tuesday, Tanioka's, or whoever might put up a shop there?
Taniokas.
Why
Yeah,
not
we
try?
want some local shops in there. That's for sure. That would be
Yeah,
great
yeah,
to
no,
have in
I
there.
totally agree. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to have poke and boiled peanuts before the game.
Yeah. But no, that makes sense. So we want to have that experience where you come to the stadium and maybe you're there at the stadium throughout the week as well, right? There's some just things that will bring you to the stadium. And I know you were there at the first. I was there at the first the EIS meeting, and there was a lot of the residents in the area wanted the space to still be like utilized really on off game days and stuff. So talk about ways that we talked about restaurants, but other ways that that space will be utilized on non-game days.
I'm really about highest and best yield. I don't want that place to be a dog park.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We really got to chase the opportunity to monetize the area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people who were at that meeting were advocating a park. I
Uh-huh.
mean, really a park. I mean, the people who are advocating that live in Foster Village, which is the neighborhood over.
Mm-hmm.
They have two parks there, which are
Mm-hmm.
totally underutilized. This mentality of us building more parks that really people are never going to go to. Uh, it that we have one chance to create dynamic vitality on 100 acres, and I don't think we should be kind of small-minded in
Mm-hmm.
it. We should really be progressive in figuring
Mm-hmm.
out like what
Mm-hmm.
spectacular exciting things can where we really
Absolutely.
live, work, and play, right? Kaka'ako is not for us, right? It's not for locals. It's kind of unfortunately for outside investors,
Mm-hmm.
but Aloha Stadium can be for locals to live, work, play. As you
Yes.
mentioned, we're going to have
Yes.
essentially housing
Yeah.
there, and we can have retail, and we can have businesses
Mm-hmm.
there as well. But we have a prime opportunity, and let's not drop the ball.
No, absolutely, and I think when you talk about just the parallel to Kaka'ako, because when we look at Kaka'ako, yes, I agree. It feels like it's not for locals, but I still feel like you can have fun. I like the art. I like that we are creating a space that feels welcoming, and we want that space to be that way as well. And when I think about like Levi Stadium in San Fran and Santa Clara, and it's kind of surrounded by a lot of commercial area as well, and it doesn't seem like it's very utilized. When there's no game at Levi's or whatever, which is what it is. But we are trying to really make this a space that people are coming through, and I mean, if you're gonna have a big rail, stop there as well, I'm sure this would be a great place to have retail as well, to keep people going. But when you think about not just well, I have a question about the tailgating as well. So, there will be outdoor spaces as well, correct? In the
Yep.
ladle rendering, or is it all going to be? Um,
No, there's going to be outside spaces. I mean, one of the ideas was to put an amphitheater, kind of Hawaii, Waikiki shell
okay,
esque.
okay.
So it's right outside of the stadium as well. So there's going to be open spaces. I just don't want people to have this misconception that somehow we're going to have a big green park
Hmm.
around the stadiums. No, we we need to start monetizing that prime real estate.
And when you talk about monetizing it, in what ways will we be monetizing it as well? In terms of like the tenants, will they be tenants of the state, or how would that work?
Yep. So the state will always retain ownership of the land,
Oh,
but
great.
we imagine that whoever the future contractor will be will come up with some kind of a lease agreement that will help bring in big, substantial dollars. And to
Mm.
me, we have to stop. We always have more expensive government services costs, right? Everything's always costing more, and all we do is I go to Wayne, hey, I'm going to increase your taxes, right? We got to stop digging into people's pockets.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the way about that: to meet the government's needs of the future is to monetize our available lands. And the state has some significant lands in the urban core that can be monetized. This is probably the most opportune piece of land and property that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And also keep in mind, the number one visitor attraction on Oahu is right across the street. So right now, 1.8 million visitors go to the Arizona Memorial, right? And think about this experience. They go on from Waikiki, they get on the bus, they check out the memorial, and then what? They get on the bus and then they dig up because there's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely nothing to keep them there. And
Yeah.
right across the street. So
Mm-hmm.
what I'd like to do is create, a walking promenade that connects the Arizona Memorial straight into this new entertainment district to invite those who go and see the Arizona Memorial to go shop, dine, be entertained, just spend money in this area. We have a ready-made audience there. We're not dragging people to that area. They're right across the street, and we totally ignored them for the
Mm-hmm.
past few decades.
Well, I think, because I tailgate there at Richardson. I have been tailgating there for about 12 years now, and excuse me, before I make my way to the stadium, I hang out with my friends at Pearl Harbor, and I just like ponder, what it could be like if we could have the boats come up like at Seattle or in Tennessee, where boats are coming up to to bring people to the site. I mean, it seems like that's kind of almost an impossibility, but do you think anything could ever be worked out with Pearl Harbor, or we can get some of it? I mean, it just seems like underutilized space as well, like just that part that connects the acreage of the site to Pearl Harbor.
I like your thinking, Wayne, but no way. No way is a Navy gonna let you bring your catamaran from Waikiki and go dock it by Richmond Field. I think that is absolutely no. But I like your thinking.
It would look cool. I mean, I understand, like, we want this to embrace. We want to embrace all of the parts, the rail, and maybe whatever alternative ways of transportation. I hope that we can implement. I know you talked about rail, but in terms of, do you think is the area going to take on any additional in the EIS? Were there any additional strain put on the roads around the area with the new stadium, or what came out of that?
Yeah, that's the first thing. Well, after parking, it's
Mm-hmm.
traffic, right? That the
Mm-hmm.
community has concerns about. But I will say, I've been prepping that community for the past 10 years that this day is coming.
Mm-hmm.
So they have some concerns, but they're not anti stuff, right?
Of
It's not like
course.
Kailua where you're anti
Of
everything.
course. Of
It's not like
course.
there's Hawai'i, we don't want this, we don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
That particular area of kind of Cross Point, Foster Village, Halava, they are ready. And you have the best freeways crossing there, right? The people from
Mm-hmm.
the windward side can come straight over from H3.
Yes.
It's kind of just in the middle between Kapolei side and our friends in Hawai'i. So I think it's the prime spot that is easy to get on and off the freeway for to the stadium. So I think that we're not. It's not going to be that big of a problem
Mm-hmm.
at the moment.
Yeah.
But as we cross our fingers and we get like a phenomenal football team who's going to pack the stadium
Of
every
course.
time, then we're going to have a few problems. But I mean, those are going to be good problems to confront in the future.
So yeah, we're waiting to see what obviously the stadium will probably look like, and the contractors will, like you say, will have some leeway there. But in terms of the amenities, we want to talk about that. And all the renderings that I looked at, they were all great, and they had some their own just little accoutrements that surrounded the stadium that kind of made it very unique. But I think when it comes to looking forward, we want to make the stadium not just college football ready, obviously, but hopefully ready to bring in any event. Any event that will require stadium seating, we want to be able to host. So, in terms of looking forward to what kind of acts or teams we can bring in, or events like the Pro Bowl, how is that being taken into consideration with the project?
Well, the stadium is going to be multi-purpose. So, in addition to football, right, that baby's locked down into football. It's really cramped for soccer. This next stadium will have a much larger field space, so we can embrace soccer. We can embrace rugby at the stadium. Certainly have concerts there. I mean, one of the reasons why we don't have a lot of concerts here is like every act, Bruno Mars or Janet Jackson or otherwise, have to bring in all of their equipment, which is, why don't we just have a stage where it just rolls it? Here's your acoustics. You might want to change the configuration of the stadium to your dancing needs or whatever. But why imperil acts to bring their own stuff in? We should just roll the stage out with the acoustics all set, and then when it's football, rugby, soccer, roll the thing out. We should have that facility ready for multi-use. And we forget, the biggest event in the past few years over there was Monster Truck. It wasn't football, wasn't soccer, it wasn't a real, I guess, I don't know if Monster Truck is a sport. It's kind of just entertainment.
Yeah.
But we have to be ready for monster trucks too, because what that event showed us was that there's a pretty substantial motorsports fan base in Hawaii that I, to be honest, wasn't aware of. I thought, when they're talking about monster trucks, I thought, you're lucky you can get 15,000 people. They got 42,000 people at the monster truck thing for 3 days. 2 were sold out, and then there was a motorcycle rally or something, had less of a crowd, but still, there was a significant number of motocross enthusiasts here. So the stadium of the future has to be able to embrace motocross and monster trucks as well.
And one we talked about was esports. I know you've already been really looking into it. And esports at my favorite team, my LAFC, my soccer team at our stadium in LA, they sold out that more than I think any soccer event, because you had got people on the field too, in the stands. And just talk about some of these emerging sports as well that you've been looking at.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of esports. I don't play games, but I see the opportunity. The numbers are astronomical, right?
Absolutely.
After the Super Bowl, that Fortnite contest where that 16-year-old kid won, I can't remember how much, like $3 million this past summer. I mean, that was the second most viewed sporting event after the Super Bowl. So it's undeniable that esports, whether you're a gamer or not, is something we need to be paying attention to. So, the LA Rams, as they are unveiling their new stadium, part of their campus there is going to include a 6,000-seat esports arena. So I'm having some discussions with the stadium authority that we probably can't build it within the stadium, right? Because we're not going to dome our stadium, but we could build an arena that's adjacent to the stadium. Okay, and tell me if you like this idea or not.
Okay.
How like the professional football teams on the mainland, they have their indoor practice facilities, right? 100 yards, not good for spectators, but you can. But I think wow, what if we built that for esports, and you can really chop the thing up in whatever increments that you need, right? If there's a huge crowd of esports enthusiasts, you expand to the whole thing. Maybe if you're only going to get 3,000 people, then you squish it down to that area. It's multi-use, and
I love it.
We talk about the rugby guys need to practice before the new when the practice while the main event is going on. So they need a practice field adjacent. So to me, it has all kinds of neat multi-purpose opportunities if we build kind of that football practice facility next to the stadium, which can double as esports arena, concerts. You can turn it into like a wedding chapel or whatever. All kinds of other purposes that could be utilized.
I love it. Yeah, it reminds me of like the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. I mean, you could play so many things in there, and even when they expand it, put up the curtains or whatever they got to do. But yeah, when we're looking at events, I mean, holding training camp possibly for the Rams or something in the future, or something that because we want to going back to the Rams again. Just referencing them, and here at Hawaii Sports Fans, we have 4 seats in the club, so we're excited about getting people going to that stadium and just engulfing them in an experience on game day where you're just totally, immersed in everything NFL and being in that fan experience. So we definitely want to contain that fan experience at the stadium, but some people feel like currently in its current structure with the stadium, they just don't feel welcome, or they feel like they're being chased away by the ushers or by the stadium authority, really what it comes down to. So I guess what are there policies? Are there anything that's going to be? What are we going to do in terms of freshening it all up? Because we're going to have a new facility. We don't want to bring in the old, guard of just like, nagging people. Or I sit in the front row. I've been there. I've been at most of the games my whole life, but at least the last 13 years I haven't missed a game. But sometimes whoever decides to be working way above me in section B, I'm in row 1, will have to come all the way down to tell me something about sitting down or putting. I'm just like, dude, you know who I am. I'm always here. You know that I'm here. So it's like little things like that. Like for me, it's like these little microaggressions. It is what it is. Like I'm kind of just used to it being in that stadium, but it does affect the game day situation. And there are a lot of people who have come on this show and have said things like, I just don't feel like I want to go. And of course there are things that they got to just change with. You can't bring in an umbrella. That's not a thing at any stadium. You can't bring in bottles, whatever. NFL, you can bring in water. NFL, you can bring in 2 water bottles at every stadium I've been to. But the safety issue is one thing, but also just feeling like, after the game you're being chased out or something. So I guess for the people at home, how can we be ensured that our new stadium is going to come with a new set of rules, maybe, or a new set of welcoming people that might be waiting for this stadium. They're like, okay, I'll go back. I'll be a UH fan again when this stadium is piled. Then I'll come. Because a lot of people in LA are saying the same thing, right? They're like, I'm not going to the Coliseum. I don't like going to Coliseum. It's like, and I got it. I had sat in the Coliseum 4 years, 16, 17, 18, 19. I sat in the Coliseum watching the Rams, and I'm like good with the Coliseum. Like, I'm done going to that place. I don't need to go back there. But we want to make it sure it's the new, right? It's all new. It feels new, and all the things feel new. So I guess for you, is there anything that you perhaps are looking into just in terms of how the new stadium will be administered and supervised and, run and maintained?
It's funny you say that because Stadium Authority last month kind of unveiled their surveys of, kind of customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not perfect, but it showed marked improvements over the past 3 years. Everything from having a water dispenser
Mm-hmm.
to having friendlier ushers. So I'm sorry to hear that there are some people who still have bad experiences, but
Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
the customer surveys, it's indicated that things are getting better. And no fan experience is going to be perfect, right? You
Of
just
course.
mentioned about how you and I are kind of zealous fans, and sometimes I want to stand up and cheer,
Mm-hmm.
and then the guy behind me is yelling at me, sit down. But you and I also know that this is different mentality in Hawaii.
course.
On the mainland, you go to some games, people don't sit down for the
Not at
entire
all.
game.
Not at all.
In halftime. But people are always standing. But in Hawaii, you get the guy in the back say, sit down. Where's the
Yeah.
excitement right? So I don't know. It's kind of a different culture here in Hawaii. So I don't know how we're going to get past that, because if the guy behind you, maybe he's elderly, he can't stand up, he's going to call the usher to tell you sit down, and therefore it impacts your fan experience. I don't know how we get past that unless we get to a culture where people just accept the fact that sometimes people are going to stand up in front of you.
Yeah.
Right? But think about the mentality. When we go to a concert, you don't tell the person who's dancing to
Never.
Bruno Mars sit down, right? You kind of
Never.
expect that
No, never. Yeah.
somehow at a football game or basketball game or other social event or sporting events in Hawaii, we all have this expectation that you're going to sit down. But anyway, that's a cultural thing that I don't know how you're going to change people's views on what's acceptable behavior or not.
I think I think it's more like at the gate, and I agree. And I honestly, I've had good relationships. I always say hi, uncle, like some of the same ushers, and I've been okay with that. And I know like people are, they always have an excuse, but we're at a point now with UH football, particularly where we're, hemorrhaging season ticket holders, not like just losing a few here and there. I mean, it's at a place where, my grandfather used to always say growing up, and I go in the 90s, 2000s, like, oh, we cannot get, they go between under 30,000. Oh, that's bad, under 30. And it's like, now I have to tell Grandpa we get under 20 sometimes, most of the time. And that's hard because, obviously this can affect how many seats we're going to have in our new stadium and how we're looking forward to growing. And I know Coach Graham really believes he can fill the 50,000 out right now. And I know that the potential is here. But looking forward to this new stadium. In terms of the number, the capacity, it looks like 35 is about the number that is being gauged. And do you see any work around that number, or do you think the most of the plans will stay around there?
Well, that's the number that we've kind of put out. So we started at the beginning of this conversation talking about what Crawford, the
Mm-hmm.
consultant, has deemed as the proper number. So that's Crawford's
Okay.
number.
Okay. Okay.
And I kind of support that figure, right? We
Mm-hmm.
should build for what we need, not
Mm-hmm.
what we aspire to, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're never going to host an Olympics here. We're never going to have an NFL franchise here. We might get the one-offs, like the Rams Cowboys game. We had the uh, run with the Pro Bowl, but I mean, those are onesie, twosie events. We really need to build for what we need, and I think 35,000 is a realistic number. I mean, that's the size of what Boise Stadium, right?
Mm-hmm.
They got an awesome team there year
Mm-hmm.
after year.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a huge stadium, so I think 35,000 is probably the right thing. We shouldn't be thinking like, oh, we're going to get the Pro Bowl back here, and we
Mm-hmm.
better build something that's 50, 60,000, so that it looks so cavernous when the University of Hawaii plays there, and they have a good 30,000 seat crowd. It's going to look too huge. So I kind of like the idea of
Mm-hmm.
35,000.
When you brought up the Pro Bowl as well, is that something that the state or aspires to bring back at all? Do you believe?
No, I mean I think you look at the Pro Bowl today. It's really a touch football game, right? They're not pounding each other,
Mm-hmm.
and we in the past had to pay like $5.5 million of HTA money to bring that game here.
Mm-hmm.
And especially the most important thing is you look at the viewership. Nobody watches the Pro Bowl anymore. So what's the plus side of bringing them here, especially if we're gonna have to pay to bring them here? Now, out of the goodness of the NFL's heart, if they thought that they could get a bigger audience by bringing them here and do it for free, sure, bring it here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the days of us paying the NFL millions of dollars to bring a touch football game here, I think those days are gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, around the events surrounding the Pro Bowl were such great events for the community. I mean, wherever, when I go to the Super Bowl every year, not everybody's going to be there, right? Very few people are going to the game. I mean, they're always shocked and they're like, "Oh, you're going to the game?" Like, "Yeah, I'm going. I brought people from Hawaii, and it's an amazing experience." But it's those auxiliary events that they hold in town that make really build that fan base, that NFL fan base. When I'm in Minnesota, in Atlanta, so I think that Pro Bowl really did. And that what the Rams and Cowboys game showed is that the fan base is here. I mean, that game sold out, and so many people that are not even Rams or Cowboys fans just really talk about how much the fun they had at that game, which is really strange for a preseason game, first of all. Anyways, because even if my favorite team is playing, it's like a preseason game is sometimes hard to stomach because it's just like frustrating. But that was such a great event. So are there other events like that you think we'll see annually eventually, or that we'll have active discussions about talking about bringing back annually?
Yeah. Well, I think the Rams Cowboys game showed everyone how starved Hawaii people are for good quality entertainment, right? You're bringing in some top-notch teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not bringing in the Buccaneers versus the Redskins here. So that was a good marquee matchup of teams. But to keep in mind that going back to whether it's the Rams or the Pro Bowl, and you talked about the benefits for that 1 week,
Mm-hmm.
and for us to pay millions of dollars for 1 week of fan entertainment, I'm not too sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we should really be doing is trying to look at something that's a steady stream of income. So, to your question about what's on the horizon,
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to I think the USL. They're not the MSL, right? The MSL is the top
MLS,
soccer team.
yeah,
But,
MLS, yeah.
MLS.
USL,
But
yeah,
USL,
USL, yeah.
USL is the kind of the minor leagues of
Yes,
soccer.
yes.
They're very interested in putting a franchise here in the
Really?
near future. Yeah, which that would be huge, right?
It
Because
would be.
then what Hawaii needs is long-term tennis. Like,
Yes.
so UH takes care of the fall season. The USL I think plays in the springtime period. And if they provide a team here, then we have actual churn, right? Not these one-offs that
No,
we chase
I agree.
and throw $5 million. Rams, we paid $2 million last year, but to have a franchise here would be huge.
Yes, I agree.
Another thing I'm trying to kick is the World Rugby League, and as we mentioned, the stadium should be built before the start of the 2023 season. And who is Hawaii playing? We're playing Albany.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean to knock Albany, but that is not a marquee game. You don't want this brand new stadium to have UH versus Albany as the first event. So I'm trying to work with the World Rugby League to bring a pretty substantial game here. We're probably not going to get the All Blacks,
Okay.
but we could.
We were waiting for you to say that. I was just waiting for you to say the All Blacks were
I don't
coming.
want to raise expectations, but we're gonna try and bring a marquee game with the World Rugby League. Tonga versus Samoa versus Fiji. Japan is hot in Asia as well, but bring a significant World Rugby League game here, perhaps to open the stadium. And they want to have a recurring presence here. They're not going to set up a franchise here, but they are willing to drop one game a year into Hawaii because the growth area is no longer Europe, right? The growth area for the World Rugby League is Pacific. So Hawaii stands in the prime spot to take advantage of the World Rugby League's growing interest.
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful. I think that a chance to diversify the sports that come through here and be on the front. I think a lot of the frustration is like we always seem to be the reactionary type, right? In Hawaii, it's like something happens somewhere else and we want to do it here, but we want to be the first. We want to be the example, and I think we have a huge opportunity. Even now, in the midst of our pandemic, there are obviously a lot of challenges with government, but I guess I'll let you talk about that too because we didn't really bring that up. Obviously, we talk as if we're in a vacuum and nothing happened, but given that the pandemic is still kind of raging, at least on the mainland, does this affect the timeline for anything that projects that we have, and any other issues that have come up for you?
Well, that's always something that people think about, and then some of the people who knock me on this project are those who believe that $350 million could be used to shore up businesses, feed our neighbors, but those people kind of don't understand how government financing works. It's not $350 million in cash that we have. It's kind of like a mortgage, right?
Of course, yes.
We're going to pay this thing off in the next 20, 30 years. It's $350 million. So it's not like it's readily available. But, pre-COVID, it was obviously a great, exciting, needed project. Now that we're in COVID, it's, to me, even more imperative that we get this thing going. Because that's a lot of jobs that we can create with this build out. And COVID is crippling us at the moment, but COVID's not going to be here forever, right? And this mentality that somehow we're never going to go back to mass entertainment, sports gathering is ridiculous, right? Those people who think that somehow we're always going to be in this kind of junk state that we're in have to realize that we're going to get out of it. And I'm pretty confident by 2023 we're going to have back to normal. I mean, you and I might still go to the games with a mask on, but there still might be 35,000 people sitting next to us with a mask on.
Of course.
So COVID might change that experience, but I don't think it's going to kill the idea of ever having any kind of big, glorious entertainment gatherings in the future. And so 3 years to me is a far ways away for us to not be kind of paralyzed into thinking that COVID's going to forever decimate athletics in Hawaii.
Well, I think also the project is just so beneficial for the whole state. I mean, when I don't try and deflect questions. I know as a politician you have to take the questions, but I think when people, especially will challenge sports-minded people, like, oh, you're just so biased as you want all these sporting events, which I like sports, obviously, but I mean, I'm an artist, as by profession, I do things. I clearly. I don't feel like this project is just going to singularly benefit one small, cross section of Hawaii. I think it can impact everybody. I mean, when we think about the stadium, some people maybe they think about the Dare Pledge or something, right? Aloha Stadium. It's like that was their moment to be there. But these places have such, they're part of the fabric of our way of life and growing up as kids. Also have a question. Well, actually, you brought up the seating. The bucket seats is something that's going to be a huge thing too. So is that something you could definitively promise to people as well, that will have the bucket seats in the stadium?
Bucket versus bench seating?
Versus bench seating, yes.
Or
versus like aluminum bench seating.
What is that? Sam Boyd, Las Vegas Stadium. That is a crappy fan experience. So no, it'll be individual seating.
Okay.
There.
You heard it here first, people, because there are a lot of people very worried.
We're not doing bench seating.
Bring
your own cushion? No, we're not doing that.
No, those are too uncomfortable, and I think it would probably really disincentivize people from coming to the games, especially if they have to sit on that. We have a question. When we start from Nolan, when we start building a new stadium, where would the Warriors play football? And I know that most of them were on the same site, right, building it next to it. But there was one plan that was on the current site as well, right? So can you talk about that as well.
Yeah, so there were three plans. One was to actually build in place. So I don't know how that would go. I mean, we just, I guess, take it down in sections. So one season you sit in the new section
Mm-hmm.
stadium, and half the crowd sits in the old stadium. So that probably is going to get scuttled. So to answer that viewer's question, we're going to build the new stadium adjacent to the current stadium. So come 2023, when this new stadium is built up, then we're going to say goodbye to the current Aloha Stadium. So the UH football team will always have a place to play.
It's gonna be a very sad day to see the stadium. I would like to personally see, because it's a new stadium. It's like Yankee Stadium, right? We know that the new Yankee Stadium is not Yankee Stadium, but there's still like you're not gonna get all the ghosts, but they brought some of the ghosts with them. They brought some of that history with them. Like, how can we bring some of? Because we don't want to start new. We have history. We have the place Halava itself. I mean, that exact site has been has captured so many amazing moments in sports history that have occurred in Hawaii. Have been right there. So how can we still embrace some of that past as well in our new stadium?
We can maybe create some artwork with some of those steel beams,
Mm.
but I mean, I don't know who was in charge back 45 years ago. But the idea of building a steel structure a quarter mile from the ocean was probably not the smartest idea,
Mm.
right? I mean, you got to build with concrete and stone, right?
Yeah,
You look at the Colosseum in Rome; it's still there after 2,000 years,
it is.
and still standings. But we have a 45-year-old stadium that needs a lot of TLC because it's
Mm-hmm.
steel. I think
Mm-hmm.
that was the error of whoever built it back then.
Mm-hmm.
We can't be building with steel if we expect some level
Of
of
course.
longevity. Stadium.
Well, and then with this new stadium as well, we're talking about the chance to hopefully see the football team continue to. And I know we'll talk more about just your sports side as well, and just UH trying to position itself as a major player in college football. Obviously, being a mid-major and being not like USC, not like the Trojans, but being at a very significant level of Division One. Division One is nothing to any Division One, but to be a FBS Division One team. Do you think this will give them a launching pad, or how do you think this will help to launch the program back into kind of the limelight, or where it could be, in the future?
Yep, I think it's super helpful for recruiting to
Yes.
have a young 17-year-old looking at all his options,
Mm-hmm.
walk into a stadium that's wow, this thing is brand spanking new and has like neat amenities. The toilets actually work. That's a nice to have in the current stadium. Uh, I think all of those things are important, and I think that Coach Graham was pleasantly surprised with what
Mm-hmm.
the renderings look like and what he's going to be able to call his home field, because that is just an important, especially when you're young, right? The
Mm-hmm.
dazzling, like wow, shiny lights. Those things are important to a young person. They're probably less inclined about tradition and all of that stuff. They kind of want new and shiny. So I think the stadium is only going to be helpful to Coach Graham as he recruits young studs onto his team.
I agree, and Coach Graham has been very positive about the direction that we're going. I think this is great timing. I know we're gonna shout out Ben J, of course, your friend, my friend, and somebody that was on the program last week who was really passionate about bringing a new facility to the team. Sean commented that we can bring the trough urinals to the new Aloha Stadium.
Okay, we'll bring some of that steel there.
So for the women that don't know what the Aloha Stadium men's rooms look like, they're just long troughs as if you're gonna go out and feed the cattle in the backyard or something. But hey, it's handy and efficient. I mean, I guess it's space
A
effective.
bucket would be just as good. I mean, that thing is just yeah, that's old school. Kind of disgusting, actually.
Well, you've been you talked about your travels and being working in Saipan, working in Guam, and with Hawaii and the change, and obviously to bring up just the changing demographic of Hawaii too. Things have changed in the past years, and obviously people from Micronesia and people that have come in under the compact, and you kind of you understand a little bit better than a lot of us kind of the situation there. But that's a part of a changing Hawaii, and are there things that you see in terms of like people coming in or people leaving our state that is we have to be cognizant of as we move into a new kind of phase for Hawaii as well?
Yeah, to your point, I'm to most people's surprise, I'm the honorary consul for Palau in Hawaii.
Oh,
So that's how involved I am in that community
wow.
because of my history in Guam and Saipan. And I have a nonprofit that takes medical and education supplies from here down to Micronesia. So I've been very involved in the past 20 years in
Hmm.
issues regarding Micronesia. To answer your question, it really troubles me that statistics show that 25,000 of our neighbors are going to dig out from Hawaii. We have a net loss in population of Hawaii, and those 25,000 people are able-bodied, younger folks, right
Hmm.
there. That's the workforce that we're saying goodbye to, right? It's not as if these are like, not to be mean to older people, but
Yeah.
if 25,000 seniors left Hawaii, they wouldn't have a huge impact on our economic opportunity. But we
Mm.
have 25,000 people your age and younger who are saying that I can't live in Hawaii, I got to dig out. And that is really, to me, troublesome. So, putting on my economic development hat,
Hmm.
you look at where we are today with all of our eggs in the tourism basket, and look at the folly of that
Hmm.
uh, lack of determination in decades to like diversify our economy. And now we're paying for it because 25,000 of our youngest and brightest people are contemplating moving out of here because there's little job opportunities. And even when we revisit and revamp tourism, I don't mean to diminish tourism, but those are not the best quality jobs. It's a service-oriented
Hmm.
industry that pays service-oriented jobs. We
Hmm.
really need to focus on this muscle as being the economic driver of the future. So I'm really trying to push innovation as a means to keep our local kids here. And to your point of influx of people, we should be having the brain gain in Hawaii,
Hmm.
not the brain drain.
Hmm.
But it's going to be hard for us to fix. I mean, first, I mean, we're in triage, right? We got to
Yeah.
get our economy going, and the only thing we know how to do well is tourism.
Tourism.
So tourism will have to be the main
Yeah.
fulcrum for us to reinvent the economy. But I hope that come 3 years down the road, when we hopefully have revitalized tourism, that we put a few dollars on the side into providing monies for the growth of technology and innovation as another engine to our economy.
Well, let's talk about some of those because, before I let you go, I think it's, important that we all are engaged actively in this debate. I think the pandemic has definitely brought, the issue right into our homes of how it's important it is as to be an engaged and active citizen and to be able to understand how your tax dollars are being spent because now people are starting to understand, see how things are working. But as we move into the future with Hawaii, what are some of those innovative initiatives that have been gaining traction, I guess, or you think, or have been picking up steam at least, and we might see coming up soon?
The unfortunate thing, Wayne, is there's nothing that's picking up steam because we haven't got any momentum going on anything.
Mm.
Uh, but I am a believer that we need to stop in Hawaii, stop making crybaby about how our location is to our disadvantage, right? Like shipping's expensive, everything's expensive, energy's expensive, and start shifting that discussion to like, okay, well, what are our strengths? Let's focus on
Yes.
what our strengths are in the innovation field. So it's with that mentality I come up with three ideas that I think Hawaii should be global leaders in.
Hmm.
One is the three are alternative energy, aquaculture, and aerospace.
Okay.
So quickly, aquaculture. It's astonishing to me that we import 70% of the fish we consume in Hawaii.
Wow.
Now, wrap your brains around how ridiculous that is. We're an island state. We should be a net exporter of
Hmm.
fish, but we import more than we export. So I'm a proponent of doing, the Hawaiians were great at fish ponds. Why do we leave that?
Yeah.
Let's go and do aquaculture on land, aquaponics, and then there's fish cages that we can use for our fish needs, and also you can grow vegetables, right? Ogo, seaweed,
Yeah.
limu. So we
Hmm.
can use the ocean as our breadbasket rather than looking at agriculture. What maybe your and my grandparents came here
Yeah.
to do. That's old school. We have conflicts with, we want to build stadiums, we want to build housing. There's inherent land conflicts with agriculture. We should be looking at the vast opportunities of the ocean. The other A is alternative energy, right? We
Hmm.
all know that Hawaii is the first state in America to push for 100% renewable at 2045. We're well on our way. We've got 30% renewable energy. We have a long ways to go, but we have the best, sources, whether it's Madame Pele giving us geothermal,
Hmm.
great wind, great solar. We have some hydro, particularly on Kauai, that we can chase. We should be the global center point of alternative energy. And then the third A is aerospace. This is more than just telescopes on Mauna Kea, but more and more of us are reliant upon this, right? Our phones to drive the way we live,
Yeah.
which means more Netflix, more autonomous vehicles, use it for drones. We need more Wi-Fi and broadband.
Yeah.
So we have 20,000 satellites that need to be launched into space. Hawaii, being the closest state to the equator, is the perfect spot to launch satellites into space. And they're not the Cape Canaveral, 120-foot
Mm-hmm.
tall rockets of the past that we're going to utilize in the future. Some can use centrifugal force. There's
Mm-hmm.
no actual fuel used, or the rockets that Rocket Lab are shooting off now are 60 feet high, and the satellites of today can be as small as a Rubik's cube, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe as big as a washing machine, but they're not these gargantuan satellites of the past. So we
Mm.
can really position Hawaii as the aerospace launch capital of the future. And also, communications right now is through radio waves. I think this communications in the future is going to be laser communication. So we have one already on Halakala. We're going to try and think about building another one on Mauna Loa and use lasers as a means to communicate with satellites. So Hawaii is really well positioned to be the center point for aerospace as well. So aerospace, aquaculture, and alternative energy, Hawaii should be global leaders in these areas. And those three areas, once you be successful, you can't move those jobs to California
Of course.
or Montana, right? Those three areas, you will have to be
Mm-hmm.
successful and stay in Hawaii. So that's why I'm a big proponent of pushing those three AAA economic plan in the future.
That sounds amazing. That's like, that's it sounds like a plan to me, and we wish you best of luck in pushing those through. We'll take a few more questions. Well, we'll let you talk about football a little bit too. I know you're a USC guy. We have some fans from LA, and one of them saying, "What's your solution as far as bringing them?" This is our friend Cave, bringing more Malin football players to UH. What would you do, Senator Wakai?
The recipe is simple: just win. Right? You get a winning program, they'll come from all corners of the United States to come here, right? You put a kind of mediocre team on there, it doesn't matter what kind of stud you are locally or what, you're not going to stick around. So that's kind of sounds a little trite, but that's the main thing, right? We can talk all we want about the stadium.
Of course.
If UH kind of has a losing record next year, Mr. Graham's not going to have that stadium filled. Whether we build a 10,000 seat stadium, he's not going to fill that. So it's really about winning, and that's where, going back to the fans, we got to have more loyal fans. We can't just be fair weather fans in Hawaii. I mean, you and I are staunch Warrior fans.
Yeah.
We go to the games, whether they lose, win, whatever. We're there to cheer them on. And too many of our neighbors are quickly watching TV on Saturdays instead of watching the UH football game because they're not having a winning season. We got to create a more loyal fan base in Hawaii.
Well, that's great. I love that. And you're totally right. And we need to challenge ourselves to be a better fan base. But before I let you go, I know that we have to go back to the pandemic. And obviously, it's looking more and more grim. But I think for you, in terms of, pro sports, maybe we can get it to go. College sports, we're not sure. But for Senator Wakai's outlook, what do you see for fall sports? The possibility of them happening with fans or without fans, or just even making it to the court? What do you see?
My honest opinion is I think the entire college football season is in jeopardy. I think there's a potential salvageability for conference play, right? All that early season stuff is probably going to go away, and conference play starts in late September, maybe October, and then we can probably enjoy a 6-7 game season instead of a 12-13 game season. But I think that's the best, because I know you and I and all of your viewers now, we're all itching. It's like, to me, in Hawaii, there's only 2 seasons. There's football season and non-football season. Who cares about the rest of it? And we all want football season. We're all itching, jonesing for some
Of
football.
course.
I hope we have something this year, but I highly doubt we're going to have the non-conference games to start us off in August and September.
And I guess one more thing, and I think with talking about the pandemic and your closeness to obviously the highest levels of government in Hawaii, just your assessment of our current situation and how we've been doing, and moving forward as a state, our comprehensive plan, I guess, government plan to keep us safe and move and open the economy.
Terrible. We don't have a plan, right? Our idea of opening up tourism on August 1st with people choosing to pre-test or not pre-test. I mean, think about how that is so unworkable. You're going to be on a plane coming to Hawaii. Half the crowd is pre-tested clean. Half of us didn't take the test. I'm potentially dirty. Carrying small barons in 5 hours on that flight. The dirty guys going to infect the clean guys.
Yeah.
And it should be where it's 100% testing.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only way to ensure you and I and our neighbors are safe here and reopen tourism. This idea that we're going to have allow people to choose to test and then we're going to chase them down through contact tracing. That is such a ridiculous effort, right? What did Smokey Bear teach us in the 70s? It's easier to put out prevent forest fires than try to put them out.
That's right.
Our approach is come over to Hawaii, testing or not, we're going to try to chase you down after you leave the airport. That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We have to be much more cognizant of our community's needs and really put investment in testing every single person that comes off the plane. But we're not. We're taking this kind of half-baked approach. And then on the economic development front, beyond tourism, we have no economic development plan. So the things I just talked about, those 3 A's, are just all here. I mean, I put them on paper. I tried to get funding for them, but I don't mean to badmouth the governor, but the governor and DBED, they have no answer ever for us on how we're going to get out of this pandemic. So right now, it's pretty much cross your fingers and pray. But I always believe that hope is never a strategy. That's not going to get us to a better outcome. We got to be thoughtful and we've got to be courageous and aggressive in finding solutions, not this kind of half-baked idea and hope that somehow the vaccine gets resolved and find research next month. That is not a strategy that we want to be pursuing.
Well, hard to disagree with that. Our Senator Glenn Wakai, the Glennator. Go support him at the Glennator. At Glennator, not the Glen. At Glennator. I love that. I love the play. I mean, because Bob Hogue's one of my guys, so it's his Senator Bob Hogue, and he's so renowned for that still in NCAA circles because of that Senator, and I love the play on it all the time. Senator and Glennator. It's fun, but we thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing so much, and we hope we will do as much as we can as fans to support these initiatives to continue to bring high quality sporting events, but also to move Hawaii into the next future, into its next phase. And post pandemic, nothing will ever be the same. So I think this is the best time ever to re-examine what we're doing and on our economic principles and initiatives. And I can't think of anybody better right now fighting for all those than Senator Glenn Wakai. So mahalo for joining us, Senator.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks, Wayne.
We'll see you all folks on Wednesday for our next Wayne Coito show. Aloha.
Bye-bye.